Hey.
Excellent. We're going to take just one more minute and keep letting folks in.
Yeah, as in the past, usually we have more people accessing this by recording, but we're super cool to see you guys. Amy, Chris McCrae, Lee.
Hi.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, Sylvia. Hey, Carolyn.
Hey, Joanne. All right, for those just joining, hello to all. We are adding people in, giving a minute or so, just in case people hit traffic or what have you. Just know that it's being recorded so that folks that can't join us can have access to the ride reveal. And I think I give them one more minute. And then Christina, you'll just keep adding people in and they'll just hear us in real time. 7:05 now, and being my people's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, by welcoming those of you who are joining this evening, thanking you for support and joining us on this return to in-person Ride for the Reserve 15th year with special features this year, including the farm market that will have local producers, local artisans, joining us, and the general public will be able to join with cyclists in enjoying the market and enjoying the picnic that will be provided by Panera and the relatively new local business called Locals, which is in Poolsville. So again, we're thrilled to have you join. Coming back, our ride leader will be leading you in a minute through the ride reveal. I just want to say that we have a history of a very safe ride, of a ride where we are respectful of place and people, of agricultural producers and other users of the road, of the roads out here. And I'm so glad that we have in the past and will in this ride be able to ride amicably with all. Safety is our #1 priority, and Vivien will talk more about that. And the last thing I'll say is that we have been so grateful for the collaboration with stakeholders throughout the county as we embrace the need to build food system resilience, to ensure access to food for our community members in need, and to grow next generation producers through programs like LandLink, and also to make sure that when we plan for the future through general plans like Thrive 2050, the plan going on in nearby Frederick County, that we take into account our food system, our equity, and our environment. So our work continues, and we can do all of this thankfully because of your support. So thank you. And I'll kick it over, Christina, over to Vivien.
Over to me, please.
Over to you.
Yeah. So I want to reiterate Caroline's thanks for being here. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay. I'm Christina Bostic. I am fortunate to work with Caroline and all of our stakeholders with Montgomery Countryside Alliance. And we're just thrilled that you can be here. I'm going to go quickly through some points about the ride. Vivien, our ride chair that we so appreciate, has a lot more of the technical information. So let me just go through this quickly and we'll get over to the actual reveal of routes. All right, this is the 15th year and it is a return to in-person for us. We are so excited to get back in person. We have so many wonderful riders that joined us for our 2 virtual rides, but now we're back in person and we're so excited about that. We are coming back triumphantly with not just the ride and picnic as per usual, but also a pop-up farmers and artisan market at the end of the ride. It is going to be kind of concurrently happening with the picnic. And I wanted to just shout out our sponsors here quickly, without whom we could not make this happen. Bike Doctor in Frederick is going to be providing some technical support. We have Heritage Montgomery, who has been a consistent support of this ride from the beginning. Locals Farm Market, a new kid on the block, but we're so fortunate to have them celebrating the reserve with everything they make. Sugarloaf Citizens Association is so ably and wonderfully hosting us this year at Linden Farm. And then Wegmans, often a stalwart supporter of the ride, is providing us some goods for the picnic as well. Let's see. About that picnic. In the past years, those of us who have joined us in other years, the picnic has been at Kingsbury's, and there's been a bike back to get your cars. No longer the case. Everything will be right there at Linden Farm, and Kingsbury's will be coming too. So we're thrilled to have everything in one place. We want to have the picnic be a celebration, and we want riders and non-riders to join us. There are two ways for your non-rider friends and family to join us. We have just picnic tickets this year, so folks can join just the picnic. Or many hands make light work, and this is a big undertaking for our very small staff. And we have lots and lots of volunteer needs, and we can offer SSL hours for those who need them. There's a lot more about that on the registration page. Additionally, at the market afterward, we will have a barbecue and ice cream truck. The market is free and open to the public. It opens at noon, sort of during the picnic, after the picnic. We'll have local produce, art, plants, face painting, vintage, some supporters of the Ag Reserve and nonprofits that make this place so wonderful, and your pumpkins as well. You can get those early. We just wanted to again say thank you. We would love to see any of your photos. We will have our wonderful photographer, David Riss, will join us again, but any photos that you take, we would love to see, and you can share those with #RideForTheReserve. Please be safe and have fun. And speaking of safety, we'll move on to Vivien, but my email is here, and I welcome any questions you have about any part of the ride. So I'll stop sharing and pass it to our fearless leader, Vivien here.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see that? Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone again. I'm Vivien Bonazzi. I'm a resident of the reserve, and in fact, my background is where I live. So I live up on Peachtree, and I love living here. I'm a cyclist. I ride the reserve a lot in pretty much every direction. And I'm also the ride leader for this year, that I'm grateful to do that. So what I'm going to go through today is lay out how we're going to do the rides this year. And hopefully this information will be helpful for the people that are online here, and also those who join us afterwards after the recording. I'm not going to put this in presentation mode because I'm going to switch back to showing you the rides. So you just bear with me. So again, this is the Ride for the Reserve in person for 2022. And these are a set of curated paved routes through the reserve, which I've ridden pretty much every single one of them. And I will by this weekend. I've ridden all the roads. All the rides starting in at Linden Farms, as Christina was mentioning. And we're going to do these in somewhat similar, but a little different. So because we know we have a lot of riders that aren't necessarily riding all the time, they just want to see the reserve. We're going to have some rides that'll have a ride leader and sweep, which is essentially as a support for those teams, because people ride at different paces and we want to make sure people are safe. So that will apply to the 6 mile family ride, and also the 17.7 and 26.2 mile other rides, which are mostly for adults. We will have self-guided rides. These are really intended for people that ride quite a bit, and I'll explain more about the details around those, but they are 34, 41, and 62.6 miles. Last thing, and I can't remember if Christina mentioned this, but I think it's on the website that we ask that all riders are COVID-19 vaccinated. I certainly am, and I believe the others on our team are as well. So first of all, bike safety. This may seem obvious to most, but since this is going to be recorded and others may see it, for those that ride a lot, this will seem obvious, but I want to just go through it. Please ride a mechanically sound bike. We've had a couple of years where people brought bikes that really needed a lot of effort before we took off, and that's just not a safe situation. Brakes not working is obviously not a good thing. So check your brakes, your tires, your gears, make sure your chains are good working order. We had one year, I think, where we had so much rust on a chain, it actually wasn't working. The ability to carry a water bottle, at least bring 1 or 2, particularly for the longer rides. Suitable bikes. Road bikes are probably the best suited for the terrain that we're going to ride, but hybrid bikes with street tires would also make sense. These are more upright bikes. Recumbents would also be fine. And I think if people want to ride e-bikes, I have one as well, it's fine, but just be aware that you'll be riding a whole lot faster than the other people. And for the ride lead and sweep routes, we're going to keep at a certain pace for the people that are not riding those bikes. So I've been on a couple of bike tours recently where I saw e-bikes doing longer routes, and that's fine because they're certainly capable of doing that. We don't recommend mountain bike or fat tire bikes simply because the terrain is road, and if you want a very vigorous workout, great, but don't recommend those bikes unless you really want to do that. We require everyone to ride with a helmet. And I particularly want to point out that these are the standards for helmets at the moment: Snell, ANSI, or ASTM. These are the helmets that will really protect your head if you come off. Cheap plastic helmets is not where you want to go. If something happens, you want your head protected. The other thing I want to point out here is pick a ride that's suitable for your current fitness and biking abilities. We've had a couple of years where folks are picking like 20+ miles. It is rolling terrain in the reserve, and it can be a little taxing for people. So please pick one. We've tried to create routes that will cover from folks that don't ride so much to pretty experienced cyclists, and we hope that we've offered sufficient choices here for people to take what they need, and we'll try and cater to that. Moving on, I think as Christina said, Bike Doctor is kindly going to help us as a bike mechanic. I also want to point out we will have SAG, this is support on the rides. So if something does happen, we'll be able to pick people up. We will also have emergency numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Things do happen, but that is also the purpose of having a ride, lead, and a sweep. So if things happen, particularly on those shorter rides, we have ways of being able to handle that in any kind of emergency very rapidly and effectively. Let's talk a little bit about the riding in the reserve roads. These are actually pictures that I took recently of the roads. The one on the left is Martinsburg Road. The one on the right is Slidell. And I want to point out a couple of things here. The Agriculture Reserve has active farms. They have people coming in and out of them, and there's trucks and there's livestock. It's not super busy, but some of this machinery will leave debris on the road. So the roads that I've picked here are all paved, but they are not always smooth. If you can see the one on the left, that's Martinsburg Road. There's this concrete slab in the middle, and the edges are a little rough. This also applies to Sugarland Road, which is one of the other roads that we'll ride, but they're the only two that have this. I've ridden both roads in both directions in the last 2 weeks, and they are not terrible, but they're definitely country roads. You will have gravel outflow from homes and or farm driveways. The one on the right is Slidell. You can see what I mean by the gravel outflow there. There's plenty of examples like this along the way. And I have some other pictures through my slide presentation that show some other current roads and their current status. There are also some narrow single lane bridges down on River Road. They're a little potholed, but not too bad, but they are single lane bridges, and you're a bike and they're a car, you'll lose. So be careful. There is some traffic on the farms. In particular, there are some of the orchards have quite a few visitors, and those visitors tend to drive very fast. I've tried to stay away from those roads, simply that we don't want cars clashing with bikes as much as possible. The reserve is rolling terrain. That means it's not flat. All right, so I'm trying to point that out because you need to also pick what fitness level you want to, you're able to do that. In the shorter rides, we've definitely looked at trying to keep routes to a flatter portion. And in fact, by starting at Linden Farms, we basically are in the little bit less rolling terrain than where I live is much more hilly. So I think the key point here is we're living on rural roads. I've done my best to try and pick the right roads that help with low traffic and quality of road, but we do live in rural roads. Next is ride etiquette. Seems fairly obvious. Ride on the right-hand side of the road. For someone like me, that actually took me quite a while to figure out since I grew up riding on the left. But it's important that you follow traffic rules and please don't meander in the middle of the road. We've had that a few times, and if cars are coming, that's a problem. Again, you're a cyclist, not a car. Please observe all traffic rules and then be respectful of property and people and animals at any of the rest stops. One of the rest stops is at Working Horse Farm. And if the horses are out and about, Anne Davies is very helpful, but it is her animals, and we just ask that you respect that. Also encourage people, if you want to put some stuff in the chat, feel free to put in questions and I'll try and answer them as I go through. I've just opened the chat there, so if people put that in, I'll try and do that live. All right, moving now to the next slide, which is ride leader and sweep supported rides. So I've mentioned this before, but I'll just go through this in a bit more detail now. So these rides are 6 mile, 17.7 and 26.2 mile rides. The 6 mile ride is for children 7 and up with family members, and the 17.7 and 26.2 are more targeted for adult rides. The purpose of having a ride leader and sweep is the ride leader will ride at the front, the sweep will ride at the back. This helps when the pace of everyone is very different. We can keep track of where everyone is so people don't get lost. They don't necessarily have to look at cue sheets. They can just follow the bike lead, and leaders and sweeps will make sure that everyone is together or at least following, and that we don't lose anyone, and we can handle emergencies should they come up. So that's the purpose of the ride leads. The ride leader will also be at the front, the sweep will be at the back, and they'll be wearing these lovely bright shirts, of which one of them I'm wearing, and we are very fortunate to get some custom bike shirts. So I don't know if you can see me, but I'm wearing one of them, and it's shown up here so that hopefully you'll be able to locate the ride leads and you'll be able to see them pretty clearly on the day. For the self-guided rides, there obviously won't be any ride leads or sweeps. These are for the 34, 41 and 62.6 miles. No ride lead or sweep. They do cover some high traffic intersection roads. These are all marked on the ride reveal on the maps that I'll show you in a minute. And there are 2 rest stops which are equally spaced. Talking about cue sheets. So the cue sheets, which will give you directions of the turns, etc. on the roads, will be available primarily for download from the website, and we'll work with Christina on that. She can provide us some more details around that. We ask that people download these and print them yourselves. We'll bring limited quantities on the day, but please, if you can, download them if you want a printed cue sheet that will tell you the directions. They will be coming, I'm just finalizing them now, and they will be curated, so they will be accurate. For those that have a bike computer head, I will supply GPX files, so you'll be able to also download them from the site, upload them to your GPS unit, whatever that is, whatever brand you use, it'll be able to take GPX files, and you'll be able to do turn-by-turn directions if your computer bike head will permit you to do that. But since we also know that not everyone has that, we also are using Ride with GPS, which is what I use to actually create the rides. If you want, just use your phone, Apple or Android is fine. You can download the app, it's free. And if you can load the app on your phone prior to the event, it's probably better because you'll be on Wi-Fi, presumably, although there is cell signal out there. And what you'll be able to do is, for the registered riders, you can download, I'll give you the Ride with GPS link. You can load whatever ride you want for all the rides, and you'll have it on your phone, and you can use that. You can either put it on your bike or put it in your bike pocket, however you want to do it. You'll have it if you want to use Ride with GPS. We'll also provide scannable QR codes on the day. So if you just have Ride with GPS, you'll be able to scan the code, and whatever ride you want to take, it'll load it up into Ride with GPS, and you'll pick whatever ride you want. So we hope that this will give us the most number of options, without smiley faces, to figure out how we actually do coordinate that. Again, if there are any questions, just put them in the chat. So I think that covers the directions. Let's look at rest stops. We're really fortunate this year. Our rest stops are very different, I think, from some of the ones we've had in the past. All rest stops will have water, probably local fruit. I believe we were talking about that, or at least fruit. Bananas, I realize, are not local, but we might try that too. There'll be some snacks, and there will be a bathroom there. So the 2 rest stops we have, one is the one that Christina was talking about earlier in her slides. That's Locals Farm Market, which is actually downtown in Poolesville. It's actually a cafe, bistro, etc. We will have a ride stop there with a table and water, snacks, etc. There is a bathroom inside. It's located in Poolesville. It is on the Ride with GPS link. It'll be in your GPX file. It'll give you navigation. It's right next to the bank. It's a little tucked away section. If you don't know Poolesville, you can definitely look it up on a map, and all the files I'll give you will provide that. every single ride except the 6 Mile family ride will go through locals on the cue sheets, however you choose to consume them. The 6 Mile ride is a lot shorter, obviously, and it won't get to Poolsville. The second stop is Old Buck Lodge Lane, which is Stonefield Farm, which is actually owned by Ann Davies. This is a working horse farm, and these pictures are actually from Ann Davies and her farm. And it's she's also a Montgomery County Alliance board member. She's well known to the community. She's been wonderful and has basically opened up her environment there in a farm to provide the rest stops. The picture actually at the bottom here that you can see over here, that's actually the entrance to the farm, and that's actually where we'll be, and there'll be set up tables there, water, snacks, etc., and there'll be a porta potty there as well. The Old Buck Lodge Lane rest stop will be applied to 34 mile, 41 mile, and 62 mile rides. As I think Christina mentioned before too, the rest stops are run by local residents, and they're part of the reserve, and they're active businesses, farms, etc. So just please respect the property. There are animals, and Anne's farm, she has quite a number of horses, and obviously there are people that are working on the farm. And just to be clear, all the rest stops are outside. So in an attempt to also stay safe, we want to make sure that you understand what we're doing here. Okay, I think we've got pretty much to the end here. The last thing here is really just to talk about the timing. So the self-guided rides, which are longer, obviously, will start a little bit earlier. So somewhere starting between 8 and 10 a.m. so you can ride at your own pace. But please don't leave before 8 a.m. because we do have to set up the stops over at Buck Lodge and make sure that we're all up and running in Poolsville as well. So we ask that you don't start too soon for those reasons, to allow us to set that up. The ride leader and sweep led rides will start at these times. We'll go 9:30, 10, and 10:30. The reason all of this is, apart from the rest stops, is to ensure that we come back for the picnic, which starts at 11, to essentially have us mostly coming back at pretty much the same time. So that's why we've got the staggered starts. So that's pretty much it for the intro, so that I don't have to hopefully cover this on the actual rides themselves. So now what I'll go into is actually go through each one of the rides. Feel free to stay for as long as you wish. These will be time-stamped later on for people who are doing the recording, so you can go straight to the ride that you have interest in actually doing. Let me stop there. Any questions at all? Put them in the chat, or feel free to ask me now and raise a question. If not, I'll wait the obligatory 3 seconds and move on. Okay, up to 3. Okay. So now what I'm going to cover is, I'm going to walk through each one of the rides. I'm not going to go through the detail of every single road, because some people that are going to ride these don't know the roads. I'm just going to point out what I've done and the annotations on the rides. All of those annotations will be on the digital cue sheets, GPX files, and on Ride with GPS, because these files were actually done on Ride with GPS. So I'm going to give you a general overview, and in particular areas of caution, which is high traffic, single lane bridges, these concrete slab roads that I've mentioned before, any gravel areas, etc. And for the shorter rides, because people who aren't maybe as good at riding or aren't as fit are very always concerned and curious about how many hills there are on rides. I think that's the most common question I get when we do these rides: how many hills? So I've tried to annotate those. And just to remind everyone, I tried to keep it as low on the hills as possible for the shorter rides, simply to make it more enjoyable, interesting, and obviously to try and fit to people's needs. I'm also going to point out the rest stops. And as I mentioned before, all routes have been pre-checked and ridden or driven in the last 2 weeks. I've ridden about 75% of them and driven the rest of them. Here is, to the right here is the road. That's actually White Store, not too far from me. And those of you who ride this area well know that there's this bridge down there. It's a lane and a half, and it's frequently covered completely in gravel. So this is a picture of it taken recently, and it really doesn't look that much different to what it does usually. It's actually probably a little worse today, simply because of the rain we had the other day. In the top picture here, this is literally all of the rides that we've done for this year. And I just want to point out something. Given the amount of traffic we see north of the county and east of where we are, I've essentially created routes within the rural roads to try and keep it as quiet as possible, so that we can avoid the majority of traffic and get any issues with cars. All right, let's.
Vivien, there was a question in the chat. I wondered if you could, Beth asks if there's a certain speed we are expected to be able to maintain.
Not with the ride, lead and sweep rides. I haven't created any paces here because I really don't know who's going to join. It varies quite a bit. So I don't have a pace. We will go at the pace of the people. Generally, the faster riders will probably ride with the ride lead, and the slower riders will ride with the sweep, but it will be a no drop ride. We'll make sure no one does. So even if you ride really slowly, we'll make sure that we do that. The reason we didn't set up a pace is simply because this is not a paced ride for the shorter rides. And we're trying to accommodate as many people as possible. To do that, that's why we want a ride lead and a ride sweep. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. And I'll also just say, if you're doing a ride that is not led, so anything 34 miles or over, we have that, you know, at your own pace, show and go start. And the picnic is such a long period of time, just so you can go at your own pace. The idea is to enjoy it. It's a Sunday, you know, go out and enjoy the fall in the reserve. So that's the whole goal. We don't want to rush anybody.
Yeah, it's not meant to be a bicycling touring group, which as we would set up paces. We want people to enjoy it and be really safe. And we're trying to accommodate good, high fitness cyclists, as well as people who just want to enjoy the reserve. That's a difficult balance to get. That's why we tried to do what we did. All right, I'm going to move now to the 6 mile ride. This is really meant for younger kids to enjoy the reserve. We've noticed in a couple of years that kids do like doing this and parents like doing it. It's a short ride for obvious reasons. And we will have a ride lead and sweep. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and reshare. Christine, if you can look at the chat, so that I've got to just open my screen up here. If I get anything there. Okay, can you see that? Can we see that?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, so these rides, this is the rides themselves. This is done in Ride with GPS. I have a good account here that I can do it. So I've literally put out all the rides. For registrants, you'll have access to these rides. For those people obviously who've registered, and you can have a look at them and decide which ones may be better for you or not. It is fine on the day to decide to change whatever ride you want to do. We've noticed that in the past as well. People can't quite decide between 17 or 26. You'll see what these rides are, and if you can get to see them ahead of time, then you can make a better choice. All right. So this is Ride with GPS. I'm just going to go through this quickly. This is Linden Farms up here. This is where we'll start, and it's literally an out and back down. I can never pronounce this road. Washi, is that right, Carolyn? I always get it wrong. This road is literally straight down to White's Ferry Road and back. There's only one caution here, as all of the Ride with GPSs will have this caution sign when there's a concern. This is one intersection here. It's not that busy, and on a Sunday it generally isn't, but that's the only caution. It's a beautiful road, and it's just apart from the elevation, it looks like it's really drastic. It's not. It's just a gentle descent and then a gentle climb back up. I think it'll be a good one for family rides. We'll go from there. This again will be led by a ride lead and a sweep. We will go again at the pace of what the kids can do and the adults, and we'll do that. So let me go back. That's the family ride. So I'm now going to go into, I think, Christina, what I'm going to do is just go to the 17.7 mile ride. You can do that from Zoom, I think, rather than swapping back to the slides. This is the next ride. So the intent of this ride is for it, first of all, to have a ride lead and a sweep. It's really meant for people that have some level of basic fitness, a good quality bike, and just want to enjoy the reserve. It's rolling, but there is no serious hills on this one, and I tried my best to avoid that. It is very quiet sets of roads. There is minor traffic, but nowhere near like other parts of the county. We again start at Linden Farms. We essentially, I'm just going to run through it here. We literally go downhill here in through to the reserve. We come back. This is one intersection here that has a little bit of traffic. We go into Poolsville. This is the rest stop with locals. We come back and we do a circuit and essentially come back up. in all the Ride with GPS files that I'll show you, anything that's got this caution sign is usually related to an intersection. But you'll see all of that when you go to the Ride with GPS files. One other thing to note, part of the reason I chose these roads is White's Ferry Road at the moment. If you don't know this, the ferry is not actually working at the moment for lots of interesting reasons. So White's Ferry Road normally carries a ton of traffic, but it doesn't right now, simply because the ferry is not open. So I've ridden this road quite a bit, and I've actually ridden down White's Ferry, and there's really minimal traffic. This intersection here doesn't have as much traffic as it usually does, which is another reason for using this part of the county. So again, I think this ride is pretty gentle. A couple of intersections, quiet roads, not too many hills, stops in Poolsville at locals. I think it stops at mile 10.7. So for folks that don't ride a lot, 10.7 miles will be a nice place for a break, get off your bike, and then you ride back for the remaining 7 or 8 miles. And I think that will be a good ride for those folks. We'll move along now to the 26-mile ride. So the intent of this ride, this one, the expectation here is, again, that you have a good level of fitness when you ride and a good quality bike. Certainly doable by an e-bike if that's what you want to do. This ride is very similar to the other one. It just adds an extra loop. If you remember the picture I just showed you, same deal as before, but again, because this ride is going to be led by a ride, lead, and a sweep, we appreciate that people may have not as good a fitness if they're not a cyclist on an everyday basis. So what I've done here is, when you see this little sign here, which is these are hill sites. There are only really 2. There's one here and one here. They're short. They're about 3 or 4%, 5 at most for about 100 feet or so. But they're really not too bad. If you can sort of handle a couple of 100 feet of the climb, that's it. There's really no other climbs around this. They're all gentle inclines or declines. And there's one fast descent, which is down here, which is about 4 to 6%. This goes down to River Road. And there are some single lane bridges along here on River Road that do have occasionally some traffic, but because it's sort of an end of a road here, you don't get that much traffic, but they are single lane bridges. So again, this ride is really meant for people with reasonable fitness, a reasonably good bike, can handle a few hills, nothing major. And again, it stops at locals at mile 19.2 for a quick snack, a bathroom break, and a drink. And you get to see locals and actually the John Pull House, which I don't think we mentioned before. That's the actual original John Pull House that it's right next to. And locals itself is, I think, in an old 1800 house that's been renovated. So it's quite a cool area, and there's lots of outside seating, etc. So I think it's well worth a stop there for lots of different reasons. So that's this ride. I'll go next to the next one. And obviously the registrants will go to the site and actually have a look at these rides themselves. So what I've covered so far are the 6, 17, and 26. These are the ride, lead, ride, sweep rides, with the expectation that these folks don't necessarily ride a lot, don't have a huge cycling fitness, but just want to enjoy the reserve in a safe and effective way to get to see how it is, get to stop at locals and come back and enjoy the picnic. The rides from here on are really targeted at people who do ride a lot and enjoy cycling and are able cyclists, handling also more high traffic roads. So this is the 34-mile ride. It's obviously 34 miles long. It has 2 rest stops. The one I mentioned before, which is Old Buck Lodge, which happens at mile 11.6, and locals, which is at mile 23.1. The only thing that I want to point out about this ride in terms of safety is we're going up Martinsburg Road, and there is a section there, as I showed a picture before, of the concrete roads with that kind of soft slabs on the side. There's a short section of that's annotated here and here. And the other thing is this ride goes to Comus Road and past Sugarloaf Mountain. The reason why I set it up this way is to go there as early as possible. This area is very trafficked because there's Sugarloaf Mountain, people hike it. But more importantly, there's the Comus Inn, and there are 2 wineries on that road. And after 10:30 in the morning, that road gets very trafficked by a lot of cars that move very swiftly. I don't live too far away from that. And I find that after 10:30 in the morning, you take your life in your own hands when you try and do this. So that is the reason why we're doing this in reverse, to try and avoid having too much traffic. And that's the reason we've chosen these roads. This ride has quite a number of rolling hills. There are some good hills in here. So again, if you really want to be taking this ride, if you're a good cyclist and you've got some good fitness in yourself. This road does go through Sugarland. This is another concrete section here and here, marked by the caution sign and the end, the stop sign. The ride with GPS files will have all of that annotated, start and end of these concrete slab sections. And this is also a section where there is this homestead farm along here, which does have people come along to pick up produce from there as well. That's all annotated in these files. So I think that's probably what I think I have much more to add to that one. I think I've covered most of it. So have a look at the 41 mile. My apologies, there's an error here. It's 46 miles. I will fix that. That's a big error, and I will make that change. People don't want an extra 5 miles if they don't want it. So this ride here is a little similar to what we had in the 34 mile. It just has an extra loop in it to add extra mileage to get us to that longer ride. There are people looking for rides through the reserve that are longer. So this also has those attributes to it. This one, I'm just going to zoom in here because I didn't do that last time. This is Comus Road again for the same reason that I said on the previous ride. We're going Comus in reverse to do it early, simply so you can avoid the traffic because of those vineyards in that area. And it's quite hilly out here. So if you ride fairly slowly up the hills, you want the time to get there and get past the cars. The only difference between this ride and the previous one is we've added extra loop coming out here. And that's pretty much it. Same 2 rest stops, Buck Lodge at mile 15.2 and 26.6 at Locals Farm Market in Poolsville. The section up here, what I'm just showing up here, up through Comus Road and Buck Lodge, that is the hilliest part of the ride. And then there's this section of the ride, which is closer to the river, is actually flatter. So the hillier part of the ride starts first. And I'll make that correction on the distance as well. My apologies for that. The last one is the 62 mile ride. And really the expectation here is if you are riding 62 miles, you are really a cyclist that does a lot of riding. 62 miles in the county is a lot of miles, and it's rolling terrain, and you will cover quite a lot of the hilly sections here. So please ride this if you have the skills to do it and the fitness to do it. What I've done with this one is it's a loop within a loop. And the reason for that, again, is to avoid crossing 270 and going up further north, where we actually are starting to get quite a lot of traffic, especially since COVID's come back, and also the Monocacy Bridge is now open, which results in a lot of traffic down Route 28 for those people that know it. So this ride is essentially a loop within a loop. And again, I won't go through all the details because it's a long ride, but you can see all the annotations here. The key thing here is, again, the stops are at mile 24.8, which is Old Buck Lodge, and at mile 40.8 at Locals. So I've tried to space these in such a way that you get 20, 25 miles before you need to get to a stop. And hopefully that will help you. You will cross some other farms. I think we'll go past Kingsbury in this. So there are places to stop, and some of the produce areas and the farms are open. Lewis Orchard, this one goes past as well. So there are a few other places if riders want to stop. And most people that ride 62 miles out here have some knowledge of the roads as well. So you'll know where some of those stops are. If there's any requests to put in the annotations on the GPX files, I'm happy to do that. If not, I'll leave it as is. All the annotations on this are exactly the same as the other ones. All the caution signs are here. Anything that's got concrete central sections, like on Sugarland, is noted here. So you've got the start, etc. This does intersect with Route 28, which is the busiest road here at the moment, and following by Route 107, which is White's Ferry Road. Some of the other longer rides also intersect that. They're the 2 main intersections. Everything else I've tried to stay away from, but I think if most people pay attention to that, they'll be fine. The shorter rides do not cross those roads so that we can avoid traffic. This ride, again, is sort of relatively hilly. It's hilly and mostly in the middle section, but again, if you can ride 62 miles, this will not be a problem. It's 3,000 feet of climbing, so I'm sure people have got a certain level of fitness, I'll be able to do that. All right, I think that is what I wanted to cover. I think what will happen now is for the registrants, you'll be able to access these. Christina will put them up there. We'll put the cue sheets and the GPX files up in the next week or so. I'll make that change to that 41-mile ride, which is incorrect here, as you can see. I will make those changes and we'll put the routes up within the next week. And the last thing I'll add is I ride these roads very regularly. I'll be riding them tomorrow morning and over the weekend to check the road conditions again. If there's any changes in the road conditions, they'll also be annotated up on the website that Christina has. I'll do that in particular this weekend because we had a lot of rain during this weekend. We had almost 8 inches out here from our rain gauge. So we did notice some of the gravel roads are a bit washed out. So we'll double check all of those. And if there's any washouts, I'll point them out. If they're really bad, I'll make modifications to the rides. But if not, I'll keep them as is, and that will be all annotated on the website, and Christina will have that. Right, with that, I'll pass it back to Christina, and I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I wanted to respond verbally to 2 questions from the chat here. Lee had asked, can you decide on the day which of these you want to do? And the answer is absolutely yes, happens all the time. And we welcome folks doing that. It is our intention to have these maps in hard copy up there at the start, so you can kind of follow around and look, but also QR codes so that you can access exactly what Vivien was showing you there on the Ride with GPS. Look at the profiles of grade. You know, you wake up that morning and feel like you want to take something on, great. You're feeling maybe less confident, maybe the weather has changed. You do you. It's all meant to have a good time. Chris McRae had asked, can I post the link where we can find all the routes? Yes. I will be sending that out to all registered riders as soon as it is posted, once we make those last tweaks. And what's so wonderful about both Vivien and Ride with GPS is that we can in real time make those changes and alert riders to them. We go over these routes again and again and again as the ride gets closer and closer, and just spot check them to make sure that this is a super safe ride for everyone. Were there any other questions? You're welcome. Any other questions at all? I'll say here that if you are watching this recorded and have questions, you may reach out to me. I am Christina, Kristina, at mocoalliance.org. Anything else for the folks here assembled? Okay. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody so much for coming out tonight. I just can't tell you how excited we are to have this back in person. It feels great to be able to have this, and you guys are making that possible. So super appreciated. I want to thank Vivien. I want to thank Ann Davies, who is opening her farm to us, and locals and all of our sponsors for making this return to in-person possible, and most especially all of our riders that join us and enjoy the Ag Reserve in this special and wonderful way. I hope everyone has a great evening, and thank you. Get in touch with any questions. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.